This is an ABC News special report. The Supreme Court rules. Now reporting, David Muir.
Good morning, everyone, and we are coming on the air right now because the Supreme Court has just ruled on the key issue of same-sex marriage. Our team at the court right now, let's get right to Terry Moran. What have we learned, Terry?
David, it's over. The long constitutional debate on whether gay couples have a constitutional right to marry is over, and the answer is yes. In every state in the United States, as of now, gay couples have a constitutional right to marry. A 5-4 decision from the United States Supreme Court written by Justice Anthony Kennedy, finding that the 14th Amendment requires every state to open their marriage laws to gay couples and requires every state to recognize the gay marriages that are performed in other states. It's an opinion, just looking at it briefly, that is filled with what you might call romance, a sense of the abiding connection that couples have regardless of their gender. And let me just give you a very brief example. Justice Kennedy, once again, writing with the liberals, and this is about the third or fourth major gay rights decision from Justice Anthony Kennedy. He says the nature of marriage is that through its enduring bond, two persons together can find other freedoms, such as expression, intimacy, and spirituality. And he says that essentially it is a fundamental right of couples to have their marriages recognized because the Constitution's guarantee of equal protection of the laws, and right above that building behind me it says equal justice under law. That principle, Justice Kennedy and 4 other justices say, means that the United States is now a nation where gay people can get married.
And Terry, this is significant because the Supreme Court seems to have gone further than they had to here. They could have, if they had wanted to, simply said that states have to acknowledge marriages that occurred in other states. But they went further here in this 5-4 decision.
Absolutely, David. They did have that halfway point they could have gone, which is states continue to have the laws you want, but if another state allows gay marriage, you have to recognize that marriage as well. Justice Kennedy going beyond, as you got the sense he wanted to a couple of years ago in the case about California Proposition 8 and the Defense of Marriage Act. And here's why. He's always been sensitive to the loss of dignity and the stigmatizing that he says denying gay couples the right to marry imposes. He says here excluding same-sex couples from marriage conflicts with the central promise of the right to marry. Without that recognition, he says, stability and predictability of marriage, their children suffer the stigma of knowing their families are somehow lesser. Again and again, we've heard about the children from Justice Kennedy, the children of families of same-sex couples across the country. He has been concerned in his writings and in the oral argument about what denying the right to marry to gay couples does to the children. And here, once again, in hard American law, we hear about the families that are everywhere in communities around us that now have an equal status in marriage in every state in the country.
Profound, Terry, because as we went into this morning, before we learned of this decision, we knew that same-sex marriage was legal in 37 states, including Washington, D.C., illegal in 13. The 5-4 decision coming in from the Supreme Court now, Terry. And how quickly does this change when you have a decision from the Supreme Court like this, from 37 states in D.C. to every state in America? How quickly?
It changes very quickly. It depends on the state and the jurisdiction. There are different procedures. It'll go through the secretaries of state. But in general, you can't say no to the Supreme Court when they hand down a constitutional opinion like this, saying that the fundamental charter of our country guarantees this right to all couples. It will be, at most, I would suggest, a matter of weeks before gay couples in every state in the country can walk to the courthouse and have a right to have their love, their relationship solemnified under marriage.
Terry, we can hear the honking of the horns and the people gathered at the court. Give us a sense, for the people watching at home, an historic decision from the Supreme Court today of what you're witnessing right there in Washington.
There are thousands of people out here, and I felt as I walked up that there wasn't quite the suspense and drama in the air that there was a couple of years ago. The country's moved so fast on this subject, it almost felt a little bit less intense. But when the decision came down and those interns ran across the plaza, and you got a sense almost like like a spark of fire as we understood what was actually done here in this opinion. A cheer, a deep cheer went right up through these thousands of people. There are people here who are not happy with this opinion, of course, people who believe that their faith tradition or their fundamental belief about marriage and family, that this contradicts that. But the vast majority of people here were very happy, and you could feel it in a really special way, a very historic moment.
Terry Moran, our man at the court. Terry, stick with us here as our coverage continues live here across the country. An historic decision from the Supreme Court saying same-sex marriage will now be legal in every state in this country. I want to bring in Chris Perry and Sandy Steer. We have followed their story for quite some time. They initially had a case before the Supreme Court in 2013. The result of the Supreme Court's decision in that case was to overturn Proposition 8 and legalize same-sex marriage in California. And Chris and Sandy, thanks for being with us here this morning. And I'm curious your reaction to the ruling just moments ago.
I can't even put into words how over the moon and elated we are about the ruling, not only for the couples that are in there fighting for their rights in their states, but for the children that Justice Kennedy has noted time and again should be protected by having their parents be able to be married. And for the children growing up in America today who may themselves believe that they are LGBT and should believe that the full protection of the law and their full potential have just been validated by the court.
And Sandy?
Yeah, go.
Today is a wonderful and exciting day to know that we finally have marriage equality in this country. 2 years ago, when Chris and I came to hear the ruling in our case in California, the Prop 8 case, we changed lives, and for so many people in California, we're so grateful to be a part of that movement. But since then, many, many people have suffered and have needed to have the benefits and the rights that we have had. So today, we feel proud to stand up with our American friends, brothers and sisters, to know that all people in this country finally have full marriage equality.
Well, Sandy and Chris, I know it's been a very personal battle for you and for the families who support their loved ones every step of the way. I thank you for being with us on an historic morning. I want to get right over to John Karl, our chief White House correspondent, who's live at the White House this morning. And John, I want to get to this number because this is key. In the most recent ABC News polling, 61% of Americans, that's more than 6 in 10 for the first time, said same-sex marriage should be legal in this country. And that's a sea change. You know, we cover lots of policy here, but we've never seen it quite this quickly, at least in recent memory. Just less than a decade ago, just 36% said they supported same-sex marriage. And a lot of people are pointing to President Obama and what he said with our own Robin Roberts not long ago in his administration, saying that he believed that even his own beliefs had evolved on this.
Oh, there's no question. This is the biggest sea change we have seen on a major cultural issue, certainly in my lifetime, certainly in our lifetimes. This is being celebrated here at the White House, but that sea change is embodied in President Obama himself. If you remember, David, when he ran for president the first time in 2008, he was opposed to same-sex marriage. He was against it. And now he has evolved over that time. He first coming out in that interview with Robin Roberts. And even more recently, because when the last same-sex marriage case went before the court, they stopped short. The White House stopped short of arguing for a constitutional right to marry for same-sex couples. This time, they were fully on board. They were rooting for this decision. And by the way, we just got in reaction from President Obama. It comes via Twitter, as you can imagine. He says, today is a big step in our march towards equality. Gay and lesbian couples now have the right to marry just like anyone else. Hashtag love wins. By the way, also a tweet coming in from Hillary Clinton, very much along the same lines. Another politician who had previously opposed same-sex marriage. She tweets, proud to celebrate an historic victory for marriage equality.
Yeah, this historic decision, perhaps a sign of the times, and the reaction from the president coming in over Twitter also illustrates the era that we live in. John, stick with us here because I want your reaction to a piece of audio from the Chief Justice in this case. And when we have that ready for you, we'll bring it to you. In the meantime, I want to show you images from the court. For everyone at home, it seemed kind of quiet behind John there and behind Terry seeing the Supreme Court, but I want to show you the moment. This was the reaction outside the court. We've had two historic decisions in the last 24 hours, one involving Obamacare, this morning involving same-sex marriage. As you watch live coverage here on ABC News, the Supreme Court ruling 5-4 in favor of same-sex marriage, making it legal in every state in America. And as you heard Terry Moran report not long ago, that this will happen fairly quickly in every state in America. My thanks to Terry Moran and John Carl, and for you at home for tuning in. And for many of you, we'll continue with Good Morning America right after the break. For others, I'll see you later for World News Tonight.
This has been a special report from ABC News.